In this video, you're going to learn 5 unique Serratus Anterior exercises that will be beneficial whether you're looking to improve shoulder stability for sports performance or your performance in the gym. You've got scapular winging that you're trying to fix, or you just want to improve shoulder function for long-term health. Yo, what's up? It's Coach E here from Precision Movement, and today I've got 5 Serratus Anterior exercises for you that will help to get that muscle working properly, integrate it into patterns that you'll use in everyday life, sport, and the gym, and to prevent problems like scapular winging if you have that and if it's hurting you. So the Serratus Anterior, it's something that you may or may not have heard of before, and it's a muscle that attaches. It originates and starts on the medial aspect of the scapula, but you can't touch it because it lies deep to the scapula. It's on the anterior aspect, which is the front-facing aspect of the scapula or the shoulder blade. Wraps forward around your rib cage and inserts in a serrated fashion, that's where the name comes from, into the rib cage here. You might have heard of it referred to before as the boxer's muscle because it adds reach to a punch. So if your arm is just stuck out without really extending it here like this, and then you reach it like that, the Serratus Anterior contributes a lot to that movement. Protraction of the scapula, which is the scapula wrapping around the rib cage. So that's why they call it the boxer's muscle, because you can get an extra couple inches of reach. And if I were to measure right here, the difference between full Serratus Anterior activation, which is protraction of the scapula, and then retraction, you can get about 6 inches. So it could be significant if you're not using it properly, or if it's dysfunctional because of different things. There's a few different things, common things that result in its dysfunction. One is carrying heavy backpacks for long periods of time. So if you're a student, you've got a book full of bags and you're lugging them all around campus, that could cause damage to the long thoracic nerve, which innervates and fires up the Serratus Anterior. If that nerve gets damaged, it will no longer fire that muscle and the muscle will weaken and atrophy. That's one common scenario. Another common scenario is musculature in the front, so internal rotators of the shoulder like the pec major or the subscapularis, as well as the pec minor. If those muscles are hypertonic and they are contracted, they can cause inhibition of the Serratus Anterior so it doesn't do its job properly. So in this video, I'm going to show you a technique to disinhibit those muscles, shut them off, decrease their tone to allow the serratus to fire up better. Finally, here's one that I hear or I come across quite often is that common cue that a lot of trainers or you might hear in videos or articles of keeping the shoulder blades down and back. And when that cue is overused and applied to techniques where that shouldn't happen, that will shut off the Serratus Anterior. So the Serratus Anterior is responsible for protraction of the scapula. Protraction of the scapula should occur whenever your arms are in front of you, so at the top of a push-up, or whenever your arms are up above, the serratus should be protracting and elevating. That's called upward rotation. That facilitates that movement of the arm, the shoulder flexion. If you're always keeping your shoulder blades pinched down and back, that's going to recruit the rhomboids, middle and lower trapezius, and it's not going to allow the serratus to do its job, which is to move the scapula and maintain that dynamic stability of the scapula during shoulder movements. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. Okay? So if you're always told to keep your shoulders down and back, whether it's pressing overhead, doing bench press, that's a common one. You want to do that during the bench press to keep your shoulders safe, especially if you're lifting heavy. Chin-ups is another one, keeping the shoulder blades down and back even though you're hanging and your shoulders are in full flexion. That cue is not going to serve you and your shoulder health for the long term. So allowing proper scapulohumeral rhythm, which is movement of the scapula in conjunction with the arm, they should move together in a coordinated rhythm. Allowing that to happen is going to help you to keep your shoulders balanced and healthy. So in this video, let's go through the 5 exercises now that are going to help to get the shoulder girdle working properly, and to get the serratus anterior firing, and to get it stronger. The first technique, active self-myofascial release for, just call it the anterior shoulder. We're gonna hit deltoids, pec minor and pec major here. All you wanna do is start with your arm across, grab onto your opposite shoulder so it kind of relaxes those muscles, and then dig your fingers into this area of the shoulder. From there, there's various moves you can do, but basically you're just opening up, reaching back as you're sliding the fingers down this way. And this will disinhibit these muscles, decrease the tone, so that other muscles like the serratus that are opposed to the movements and the functions of these muscles can fire better. So key is grab across the shoulder, find an area, dig in, pull, and then open up. And you can, with this arm, you can do different motions, like more of an external rotation motion or just a pure horizontal extension motion. And go from the clavicle, the collarbone here, under there, right down into the belly of the pec major. Okay, so that's active self-myofascial release. Do it for about a minute or two on each side. And that's the first technique to decrease the tone of these muscles so that the serratus can fire better. Next up, first technique, the shoulder rotation robot. Now I've shown this before, and it's one that I really like because it trains reciprocal movement of the shoulders, which is as one arm moves, the other moves in the opposite direction, and then they alternate between those two, okay? You can tell why it's robot, all right? So that's a natural pattern. It's like walking. One arm goes forward, the other goes back. It's reciprocal movement. This is training dynamic stability of the scapula, and it trains the serratus when the arm is down especially, okay? So here you do want to keep the shoulder blades down and back, go up against a wall, heels about 6 inches from the wall or so, and just abduct the shoulders a little bit, like so. Keep a fist, keep the wrists in neutral, and one arm's up, one arm's down. So you maintain shoulder blade position, scapular position, and then at the end range here, I'm still trying to push my fist down here closer to the wall, and I'm driving this fist into the wall. Hold for 5 seconds, and then you switch. So go as far as you can. Here I could push the fist in the wall. Here I can't touch the wall, but I'm still trying to reach it, still activating as much as I can. Make sure you're breathing while you're doing that hold and activation, and then you alternate. So the whole time, the scapula don't move. You stay in basically a neutral position. When you go into internal rotation, the scapula wants to lift off. So when the scapula, so this is my right scapula, this is my right scapula here. When the scapula does that, that's known as anterior tilt, anterior scapular tilt. Just like the pelvis can tilt, the scapula can do the same. The serratus is responsible for posterior tilt of the scapula. So when we're fighting this anterior tilt of the scapula because we go into internal rotation, that's just an associated pattern, the serratus fires up to maintain that. So it's saying, hey, I don't want that scapula to move. I'm going to fire up and hold it there. That's what you're training, dynamic stability of the scapula. Very important function. Okay, and that is one of the, probably the most important function of the serratus is not the protraction movement, because we rarely use that. It's just a natural movement, but we rarely require it for activities of daily living, sport. It's not something that is really targeted. However, dynamic stability is required with all shoulder movements, and the serratus is critical to providing that function. Next technique, one that you've probably seen before, scapular push-up, some kind of variation. I'm just going to show you some quick variations from easier to more difficult. So first could be just a 4-point position. Go from protraction, control the retraction. So it's like an eccentric movement of the serratus, eccentric contraction of the serratus anterior, and then protraction. Okay, so this is really easy, 4-point position. You can go to push-up position then. Again, same thing, protraction, controlled retraction, so you get that eccentric contraction working. Okay, a little bit more load. Now, one key when you're doing any kind of scapular push-up is push through the palm of the heel down here. That's going to help to activate the scapular stabilizers in general and the serratus a little bit better. Okay, so you're not pushing through the fingers, you're pushing through the palm of the heel. One that I like, now you can go to one arm as well. Show you that real quick. Obviously, more load. Don't jump to the more advanced versions and skip them because you think they're better. What's the best technique is the one that you can do that's a little bit challenging. Okay, the hardest one, if you can't do it properly, you're gonna compensate with other muscles and you're gonna further that dysfunction. And one that I really like, kind of the last in the variations, most challenging from a strength and a complexity standpoint, is the scapular step-up. So you can use a step, traditional stepper, or I've got some yoga blocks here. Spread the feet a bit wider. And the reason why I like this, just it involves a little bit more movement, so you're developing greater control. Make sure you're aligned in the spine. Okay, start off in protraction of the scapula. Lift one off. Controlled retraction, and then switch. Switch your weight to this hand, and then go back. Change sides. Control down, switch your weight, and rinse and repeat. Here, it's key, continue to push through the palm of your heel and make sure your elbows stay locked out. You're not getting tricep. We're not trying to work the triceps. We're trying to keep the arm straight to isolate the movement at the scapula. Okay, so those are some scapular push-up variations, ending off with the Scap Step-up, which is one that I really like. Okay, so that is, how many techniques was that? Active Self-Myofascial Release, robot, push-ups. Now we've got overhead rollout. So overhead rollout, another one of my favorite techniques. This is going to train that dynamic stability of the serratus and integrate it with shoulder flexion, so go into the overhead position, as well as neutral spine, core stability. What you want to do is find the wall, hands on the wall. And if you have an ab wheel, this is great. But if not, you can just put your hands on the wall as long as you can slide a bit. Now maintain neutral of the core and then slide up. And as you go up, you're leaning towards the wall and allowing the scapula to upwardly rotate. So elevate and protract. At the top, hold briefly, a couple seconds. Make sure you're breathing. And then back down. Okay, again, maintain stability. Allow the scapula to go through their full range. Train good scapulohumeral rhythm. Hold briefly up here. Let's get some mobility. And back down. Okay, so there you have, well, 5 techniques. Kind of like 4 techniques if you count all the scap push-up and then the scap step-up as one grouping. But 5 serratus anterior exercises to hit the different types of functions, different functions of the serratus anterior. So that is dynamic stability of the scapula. That is protraction, controlling protraction, retraction. And that is dynamic stability, dynamic control in the overhead movement, the shoulder flexion movement. Okay, so there you have some great techniques to use, many you've probably never seen before, and all that will help not only your serratus anterior function properly, but your whole shoulder girdle work better to give you more stability, better control, greater mobility as well, and just shoulders that are healthier and move the way that they're supposed to. Okay, so if you like this video, you might want to check out, and if you have scapular issues or shoulder issues, I highly suggest you check out my shoulder control course. I'll throw the link on at the end of this video. Otherwise, do these exercises, benefit from them, and maybe give me a thumbs up and subscribe or whatever. Do what you want. All right, see you next time. Peace.